So context is king, and Zach Evans is here to take over Schola Gladiatoria channel. He's got some questions for me. What weapons would I choose in different scenarios? Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and
Zach Evans.
Of Zach Evans channel.
Evans, yeah. I think that's what I
Zach Evans of Zach Evans. So Zach's over here doing a bit of filming. We just filmed something for his channel, but he's got some questions for me, obviously on my channel, because that's where you're watching it right now. And this is a mystery to me. So it's somewhat difficult for me to tell you at this point what this is going to be about. But it's about scenario.
So shall I explain it?
Yeah, you explain it.
So as we all know, Matt is Captain Context. And it's very hard to get him to give a definitive answer about anything.
How dare you?
So it's very true. So what I've got here is I've got 6 very specific situations.
Okay.
And you need to quick fire off the top of your head tell me what weapon you would choose.
And why?
In that situation. And
right.
Why. Okay. All right.
And I might be able to grab some things from my garage here that might illustrate the point.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's go. So, number 1. I've written it down in my notebook.
Yes. And this, can I include any weapon or a weapon that I have access to?
You can choose any weapon.
Right. Okay. Even if I don't own it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Right. I think that doesn't really narrow it down. Open it up much because you've got so many. Okay, here we go. Number 1, open ground, unarmored duel, matched weapons. So whoever you're fighting gets the same weapon as you. What are you choosing?
Sabers.
Okay, why?
because I'm most experienced with sabers, and while there are other swords that I enjoy fencing with recreationally, you know, rapier, small sword, whatever, sword and buckler.
Yeah.
I think that proportionately I am better with saber compared to a bigger percentage of opponents I might have to fight than I am with rapier and dagger or whatever.
You think you're in the right-hand side of the bell curve there?
Yeah. I think that I'm, you know, if we're kind of like ranking ourselves, I think I'm probably further up on saber. I'm not saying I'm amazing at saber. I think I was better probably a few years ago, but I just think that my biggest chance of survival against an opponent with the same weapon is probably saber, which probably doesn't come as a huge surprise to any viewers of this channel.
No, probably not. I did think that would be the easy one. That's why I put it first. Okay, right. Number 2, late medieval. You're defending a castle at the top of the ramparts.
Yeah.
Attackers are carrying hand weapons.
Yeah.
What are you using?
The crossbow. I mean, they're not here yet, so I'm going to be shooting at them with a crossbow.
Crossbow to start. When they're at the top of when they're coming up the ladders.
A Pavis and an arming sword.
Okay.
So I'll be at the top of the ramparts.
I didn't expect that.
I'll be at the top of the ramparts with a Pavis and stabbing the people as they come up the top of the ladders. Possibly something like an axe or a mace, but I have to say, assuming it's late medieval, they're going to be pretty well armoured.
Yeah.
And my buddy Dequitem, I think, will probably agree with me here. Rather than just donking them a lot on the helmets, which might have some advantage. I mean, you might knock them off the ladder or that kind of stuff. I just kind of think that a sword is actually, I've actually changed my views on this, folks, actually, headline. I think a sword, particularly used for thrusting, is probably the quickest and most effective way of putting people out of action, especially if they're on a ladder in front of you, so quite a narrow...
And in sieges, kind of, they'd often wear upper body armour at least, so they'd be plate armoured on the top. And
also they're going to be, you know, they're going to be expecting things to be coming downwards, so actually you've got quite... So this kind of thing about the high ground, you've already lost, you know. As many people have demonstrated, and I found many years ago through sparring on a hill in the park we used to spar in, actually being up isn't necessarily an advantage at all one-on-one. It might be for a whole, you know, a whole kind of army, but one-on-one, the problem is your legs are very exposed and it becomes harder to defend your legs if you're up the slope. And conversely, the person who's down the slope, they pretty much only have to protect their upper region. So that's the same thing if they're coming up a ladder. You know, if you're kind of swinging something percussive like a mace or something, all they need to do is protect themselves with a shield.
They're probably wearing a helmet anyway.
Yeah, and so I think actually you've got to stand a better chance of getting a point into a gap into their face or armpit or whatever.
Great.
than you do with it. So yeah, so sword and Pavis, a pointy sword.
Pointy sword, specifically for stabbing. Okay, we're switching it round. You're now climbing up the ladder.
Right.
You're attacking a castle.
Right.
What is your weapon of choice?
Crossbow. No, I can't climb and use a crossbow probably. Well, I'll only get one shot and I won't be able to reload it. Yeah. So climbing up, I would also want a Pavis. You will note that I think that Pavises are awesome in a siege context, and they were used a lot in siege. And we've got literally manuscript images showing people going up ladders. With sort of Pavises, it would need to be a hand Pavis, so we're not talking about the really heavy type that crossbowmen use.
Kind of the same size as a heater shield.
Yeah, really. I mean a little bit like a Norman teardrop shield, you know, something that, but probably fist gripped. Although that being said, if it was strapped on your arm or hung with a guige, then you'd have both hands free. So maybe that's a good idea. But anyway, I'd have to think a bit more about the exact method of holding or attachment. But a large shield, but not a massively heavy shield because you've got to climb up a ladder. And in terms of weapon to use, that's a little bit tricky because if you've got a shield going up a ladder, it's difficult to use a weapon at the same time. I would really hope for good armour, but you'd need armour that wasn't too cumbersome to get up a ladder. So maybe a mixture of plate and brigandine, something like that, and maybe a big brimmed iron hat, which is quite good for sieges and quite popular in sieges. Because obviously stuff's mostly coming downwards, so different, you know, completely different priority to jousting, for example, or fighting with poleaxes. So there we go. So kind of heavy, medium to heavy armour, a large shield, and if I did have a hand weapon, weirdly, I'm kind of going, instead of going kind of middle ground with sword, I'm actually going one side or the other. Either a spear, because at least then you can have a good reach and you can start stabbing people at the top before they can necessarily reach you, unless they've also got a spear, or a dagger. And the beauty of a dagger, of course, is you can keep it on your belt while you're climbing as far up as you can, and then just basically try and bundle in and go dagger crazy, go psycho crazy at close range. So
right. Okay. So number 4, a sidearm while travelling. Medieval Europe. This is personal defence.
So I have always thought that within a medieval context, the best self-defence sidearm combo is sword and buckler. Am I allowed to have a buckler as well?
You can have a buckler as well.
Then sword and buckler.
Okay, so let's get specific. As we're in your garage, which sword from in here would be your personal?
I don't know where it is right now, but the Type 19, the sword I did with LK possibly, because that is in an unarmoured context. It is a really good cut and thrust sword. So the Alexandrian Type 19. Okay. It's a one-handed sword, but it's got a long blade. I think it's about 37 inches. So you've got great reach. It's pretty light. It's pretty quick. It can cut far out towards the tip because it's still quite broad out there. So it's definitely not the best sword for fighting in even medium or light armour, but in a civilian context, absolutely fantastic.
Almost, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it looks like a proto-rapier.
I mean, you could argue that it's the kind of beginning of slightly specialised civilian swords. And I think it's no surprise that those Oakshot Type 19 blades appear on basket hilts and side swords and other swords that come around in the 16th century used in, you know, civilian dueling contexts, with bucklers incidentally. So, and it was very popular in the Bolognese kind of tradition of fencing with sword and buckler. So absolutely a type 19 blade with a long blade, a bit of hand protection if I can get it, a finger ring or a knuckle bow would be great, and a buckler, and I think that's perfect.
Great. Okay, we're almost there. Number 5, looking good at a formal event.
Well, I mean, it's clearly got to be a rapier. It's clearly got to be a rapier, hasn't it? I mean, rapiers are just they're the ultimate, you know, Elizabethan court, you know, Sir Francis Drake, with all of your finery and all your pearls and your massive ruff and your an absolutely oozing, dripping gold and silver incrustation on the hilt, and a really long blade as well. I think that, you know, particularly in the Elizabethan period, just showing off with a ludicrously, you know, a 45-inch or longer blade.
You need a really large turning circle to get around the canapes.
Exactly. And a very fancy scabbard, very fancy hanging system for it. So the belt has to be as fancy fancy as the sword, and then you have a matching dagger for it.
They often match the doublet and
hose
as well.
Actual silver thread woven into the brocade or whatever that matches the silver. Yeah, absolutely. Rapier and dagger have got to be
the most.
Yeah.
Cool. Very good. Okay, this is the last one, number 6. Okay, we're changing it a bit. We're now in the fantasy realm.
Right.
You're fighting against a fantasy opponent, such as an ogre or a troll.
Okay.
So they're bigger than you, they're stronger than you.
Right.
And they're angry.
So I think a lot of people would immediately go for something like a boar spear. There's a problem with that. Boars tend to run in a straight line, and then you skewer them, and you have the assistance of some dogs and some other people, and maybe some people with crossbows as well, or guns. An ogre is a completely different opponent because it's essentially like King Kong. It's like it's like a giant gorilla that swings around. And the problem is, as you see in like Lord of the Rings, in Fellowship of the Ring, if they're swinging their limbs around, they're going to knock your point offline. So I mean, even if you stab it once, it's going to be quite difficult to stab it again and again. And if it's closing in on you, a boar spear is useless at point blank range.
It would be able to break the spear probably. So you're not holding it at distance. Yeah,
so I'm actually thinking, I mean, assuming I can't choose what armour I'm wearing, because armour is going to be a good idea, and I'll definitely take armour if I can get it. I'm actually thinking poleaxe.
Okay.
Because poleaxe has got a lot of the benefits of a boar spear for thrusting.
Yeah.
But you can block. It's strong enough. You know, it's one of the strongest, chunkiest, most robust weapons you can get.
With some decent langets down the side.
Yeah, good solid langets and a disc handguard. You know, so you've got a better ability to protect yourself, but you've also got so many options for hacking repeatedly. You've got two ends, so even if the thing swipes one side out of the way, you've got the back end to come around with. Yeah. So it's double-ended, and you've got an axe, and you've got either a beak or a hammer. I'd choose a beak against it, because obviously a beak go well through your skull of an ogre or something like that. So basically massive poleaxe.
Right. One of the things that I've experienced with a poleaxe as well is that when the wood shaft eventually breaks, now you're actually armed with a spike and a hammer,
or one-handed battle axe and exactly. So you're still left with two useful objects.
Rather than a boar spear, you've got a piece of wood.
It's a really good point, actually. Because if you literally just sawed a poleaxe in half, you'd still have two decent weapons.
Well, there we go. Those were my quick fire.
Cool, that was brilliant. It's really good.
Contextual
contexting with Captain Context. Maybe that should become a new playlist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, thanks a lot for that, Zach. That was really fun. I like being questioned, weirdly. But maybe you've got other scenario questions that you would like to address to Zach or me, because obviously Zach's experience is very different to mine. He's got a huge amount of horseback experience, jousting, and really more reenactment experience than me as well. So maybe you've got context questions for Zach, or more context questions for me, or maybe both of us together. Get posting down below.
And we can collect some up.
Yeah, we can collect some up and maybe do another one like this. Maybe we could do 5 or 6 questions, and maybe we could alternate between us or something like that. Anyway, there's a fun idea for another video sometime. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for Zach for coming onto the channel and giving me some questions for a change. And hopefully see you back really soon. I'll stick a link below, obviously, to Zach's channel if you're not familiar with it. I'm sure you are, but if you're not, stick a link below. So check out Zach's channel. Lots of cool content there. We'll see you soon. Cheers, folks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.